From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider. I'm your host, Mike Finger, joined, as always, by Express News Spurs beat writers Jeff McDonald and Tom Orsborn. There's a tendency this time of year, covering a team like the local Cagers, to use the phrase playing out the string. I don't know if that has overly negative connotations. I don't know if it describes Jeff McDonald and Tom Orsborn's attitude these days. But Tom, what do you think? Are we just counting down the days, playing out the string until the middle of April, and this season comes to an end? Or are you still riveted, interested, compelled by what happens over the next month or so?
Yeah, we're still going hard, Mike.
Are you?
Still suiting up and showing up, and
that's encouraging.
That's right. Yeah.
You had a nice trip to Sacramento and Minnesota.
Yeah. De'Aaron Fox got what he expected. The bitter people voiced their opinion, but he also got a lot of love. Then on to Minneapolis with Wemby in tow, where they got hit by a ton of three-pointers. So, yeah, it was about what was expected. And then back home to Dallas. What did you guys see last night?
Well, I'll let Jeff take that. Jeff sitting up on the platform above the first level of the Frost Bank Center. Jeff, I don't want to put too much of his business out there, but he seemed a bit exasperated at times. I'm not sure if a good night's sleep has changed his outlook at all, but it's time to check in with Jeff McDonald. Are you still exasperated? It was the second night of a back-to-back after they'd been in Minnesota. These Spurs, Keldon Johnson playing his heart out. Guys playing their hearts out. They were just up against a juggernaut, the Dallas Mavericks. You can't expect to beat a team with more. I mean, not only do they have 5 healthy players, they had 8. I don't know what Jeff expected.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I'm playing out the string. So what was the question?
No,
man, to me, yeah, everything you said, whatever. The whole, it's hard to do a podcast this way, but the whole caveat before I start this is none of this matters. Like we are really at the playing out the string portion of the season. Wemby's out. We could talk about it later, but De'Aaron Fox sounds like he's getting closer to having season-ending surgery, or at least that's a possibility coming up soon. The Spurs aren't, though they are technically mathematically in that play-in mix, they're not really they're not really going for it. So the outcomes of these games don't matter, and if they do matter, they matter in a sense of helping to maximize lottery odds, or at least not hurt your lottery odds by winning too much. But man, that game looked to me like the Spurs showed up, looked at who was on the other, like these 26-win Spurs showed up, looked at who was on the other side, which was 8 guys, 8 Mavericks, 2 of which were on a minutes restriction. Not a whole one of them is a 2-way player that's starting, and just said, yeah, we got this, and kind of farted around a little bit, and was up 5, 6, 7, 8 the whole way. You kind of got the sense in their body language, yeah, we're going to pull this out at the end, and until they didn't. Played with fire and lost the game that they probably should have won. Like, they had enough to beat an 8-man Dallas team, who, by the way, was also on the second night of a back-to-back at the Frost Bank Center. Like, they had enough on the floor to be able to do that, and just didn't, because I don't think they really approached it with the appropriate fear that Coach Greg Popovich used to preach about all the time. And at the end of the day, as I started to screed, it doesn't matter anyway. Like, whatever. But you'd like to see them come out, execute some stuff, play some defense, and just kind of win that game by double digits. But they didn't, and so what?
So we've been doing this podcast a long time, been in this league a long time. then that's the harshest I've ever heard Jeff McDonald come out against a team's fire and energy.
Serious?
It's
I don't think you just, well, you know what? Because they don't usually do that. Usually when they lose, they just lose. They really are a team that tends to play hard and tends to, that how many years did we hear them? Well, they had a lot of guts. They showed a lot of pride. They lost their 18th game in a row, but
that's what Mitch Johnson said last night.
Yeah, well,
He sounded like Greg Popovich.
I'm respectfully disagreeing at this.
It's just of all the games for you to. You might be right. You're a seasoned.
Well, there aren't a lot of
veteran.
There aren't a lot of
games.
When you're 20.
I didn't notice that was that much different than most of their effort most nights.
Man, that first half, and it kind of went both ways. That first half reminded me of like a summer league game.
I think it's because you're in your own head. I think your head is in summer league, and you're what do they call it? Projecting. I think you're projecting your own playing out the own
stream. It was just straight line drives. It was It was a mixture of just like. It was interesting. Like there was no defense, so it's just straight. Like neither team was really playing a lot of defense to start that game.
They don't have any good defensive players.
So it's like straight line drives, but then occasionally it'll just be like a guy jogging up and taking a contested three with no shot, with no pass.
Which describes 98% of NBA games now.
Not really. Not good ones. Not good teams. That's how you win.
You might be right. I didn't notice anything.
Well, you weren't watching.
I was sitting right next to you.
I think but I think you were zoned out or something because you don't have to write the takeaways.
See, the takeaways has a huge impact on this. I think you were just out of takeaways. You're playing out the takeaway string.
I thought that was a game they could have won and should have won, and didn't. And it was mostly an approach thing to me. But again, whatever. I mean, good job. You tied Chicago for lottery odds now, so I guess you're doing your job.
I was stuck in stuck at the airport in Denver on a lengthy delay.
You had a better night than we did.
Oh, I didn't see any of it, but this Harrison Barnes guy, this old guy, he seemed to have a pretty good game.
Yeah, Harrison had a good game, good shooting game, and Keldon always plays hard. That was one of the three takeaways, is Keldon, no matter what the situation, even when they're, frittering away a game against, what did Klay Thompson call it, a high school team? Klay Thompson called themselves a high school team last night. Even when the Spurs are
I'm almost sure that team could have won a high school state championship. At least they could have at least won district.
Have you been watching the state championship games?
They could have at least won district.
I don't even know that they
would have run away with the district.
I don't even know that they know they're from a district, much less it's up for grabs.
That's Klay Thompson being self-deprecating.
But anyway, Keldon played hard. That was one of
Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench, Dwight Powell, Dante Exum. That's a hell of a team.
What?
The Spurs should get credit for hanging in there with them.
Who should get credit for hanging in there with them is the fans that stayed till the end.
Yeah, it was a good game.
I guess they aren't say that.
They aren't negative about everything like certain members of this podcast. It's something. This podcast. Sometimes you're up against it. Some you're either shorthanded or you're just you're running out of topics. Like that could be a problem for a podcast. You're trying to make things interesting for the last month of the season. Is I guess one thing that's always good for interest is Victor Wembanyama, who Tom alluded to it on the last trip, got on a plane, traveled with his team. He's been showing up to games. He was on the bench last night in both Sacramento and Minnesota, providing moral support. That's somewhat encouraging to see that he's hanging around, right, Tom?
Yeah, no health risks apparently for flying. There was some question about what's he doing flying while taking blood thinners, but Mitch said there's no health risks at all. They're kind of leaving it up to him on which road game he wants to go to, provided he isn't already receiving treatment that keeps him from traveling. But from what I could observe, I think he's going to make all of them. he it's really fun to watch him during the games. He's really into it. I mean, he's not just sitting back on the bench. And I heard or read somewhere last night he got into some of the timeout contests and nonsense that goes on during timeouts.
But what
The Whataburger,
the thing is, like, he's been in the league for a year and a half,
yeah,
and I'm not sure he's ever noticed that stuff before.
right.
And just watching him during time, and also there's a timeout going on, and Mitch Johnson is rallying the troops. You know, the players are making their adjustments. But Victor Wembanyama, who is as competitive of an NBA player as there is, so much so that he tried to find an angle to game the All-Star skills competition. Like, he wants to win more than anybody. Takes it all very, very seriously. Played very hard at the All-Star game. You know, even he's like, do I really want to listen in to what Mitch is trying to say here about some adjustments to make against the Dallas Mavericks on March the whatever, in a season that is getting away from us? Or do I want to watch the Whataburger Build-A-Burger competition here, which he seemed kind of fascinated by? He looked back and forth and kept sneaking peeks, and you know, watching these four fans, two teams of two, dress up in hamburger buns and become Whataburgers. And yeah, he that might have been the highlight of his night. Didn't get a chance to ask him, but that was fun to watch him sort of notice the stuff that he never paid attention to. Like, he's so laser focused. I'm not sure he knew there was timeout entertainment when he was a player. When he was playing.
You know why? It's because the two Whataburger Build-A-Burger contestants were more engaged than anybody else on the floor that night. Like, that was the most competitive part of the whole night.
And it's understandable. It's
He
understandable.
does miss being around the guys. I mean, he's he's pretty active. I mean, you know, at least the games I observed, he was chatting up guys.
No, to be fair, he's talking to guys when they come over to the bench. He's engaged. He sits right next to the coaches. He's asking questions about calls and into it and everything. I thought that was funny though to watch.
I don't know if you want to get into
Build-A-Burger.
I don't know if you want to get into this speculation, but the fact that Victor is traveling by air with the team, do we want to sort of make some assumptions about what that means in terms of his treatment and his plan and where he is in that?
Probably not. The thing, like, I'm not sure another podcast full of speculation adds a whole bunch. We know that I mean,
what is a podcast if not object speculation?
Okay, so as Tom just mentioned, he's on the plane. The Spurs say there's no health risk there. He can travel. He can fly with blood thinners. We know that surgical procedure is an option at some point. He has not had it because he's on planes. Is that what you wanted to cover? I'm not sure. What else? What else do you want to cover there?
Like, we're again, we don't know. You know, we haven't been. We're not privy.
This is going to be riveting stuff.
We're not privy to his the details of his plan, but we are aware that he was going to have to be on blood thinners for a number of months before basically the Spurs, you know, any other option could be taken. Like, you can't if there is a surgical component, like, this shouldn't be breaking news, but you can't do that while you're on blood thinners because your blood won't clot when they cut into you. So you know, so the fact that he's traveling now, he's on the blood thinners, and that addresses the clot issue, but it can't be addressed permanently until he's off the blood thinners, which will be a number of months. So it sounds like a summertime sort of thing. And then and again, we don't even know that he's actually going to have this surgery. We're just assuming, but
I'm not sure. Do you know it's a number of months?
Well, a number of months as in more than one. Usually the typical regimen is 3. I can't say that he's having something typical, more typical or less typical, but the typical regimen for something like this would be 3 months of blood thinners. but I don't know if he would, if he's typical or not. But I think it's fair to assume it's, he'll probably be on that for the rest.
I cannot wait to see Hoops Hype clutch points aggregate that.
Yeah, they're not.
No,
They're
but
not listening.
I don't even know what we just said. But yeah, sure, cool.
Well, nonetheless,
Nonetheless, I want to see the clutch points aggregate the meme of Victor Wembanyama, according to the Spurs Insider podcast, may or may not be on blood thinners, may or may not have surgery.
Oh, I see.
nonetheless, they
may or may not make the.
I mean, all along we were able to draw some assumptions from what he's going through, and it doesn't necessarily mean the assumptions are correct. But
I would just caution against drawing any
like we said when this started, the Spurs have left us some breadcrumbs to follow as far as what he's got and doesn't have, and what the courses of action probably are, even if they can't or won't say it directly out loud.
Well, it's good to have him around, and I'm sure he's going to figure out that green dot race, or that dot race soon enough, right, Mike?
Well, if you want to get to the real journalism here, I was sort of surprised last night that Green won, but here's the thing: longtime listeners of this podcast know that it's generally pretty easy to predict the winner of each night's dot race because there's only three colors. There's a blue, a green, and a red, and the color associated with the visiting team never wins. So a lot of teams are like blue and red. That means green's always going to win. Like a blue, like if a team has green in it, that green's never going to win. And the Mavs have a lot of color schemes that involve green. Like historically, I'm not sure if they still have green jerseys this year, but it seems like I've remembered some green at some point.
You're correct.
And so last night, and I think the key part of this is the Spurs play the Mavericks twice this week, on Monday and Wednesday. And so I'm thinking, well, red's going to win both times because the Mavs have blue and green. But the key thing last night was looking over at the Mavs bench and all their uniforms, their warm-ups, everything. They had no green. They were wearing their blue and black. So maybe that was the exception. Maybe that was the asterisk that allowed the green to win last night. On Wednesday, like I would like, this is the draft Prince's fan crap gambling tip of the week. Like Wednesday seems primed for a red victory in the dot race because Blue's never going to win with Dallas in town. And they have just enough green that makes me skeptical that green's going to win again. But last night was the first dot race in years that I've predicted wrong because I said it's got to be red because the Mavs have green in them, but they weren't wearing green last night. So this is what clutch points is going to aggregate from this podcast.
You heard it here first. Blues never going to win with Dallas in town.
Blues never going to win with Dallas in town. Never. Ever.
That should be the name of this that should be the title of the podcast today. Blues never going to win with Dallas in town.
Name me a podcast that has better information about NBA timeout entertainment. Name me one.
I don't know. You think we should talk about basketball?
If you really want to Mike Finger hot takes, and this is going to be more controversial than and maybe it shouldn't be than anything else we've discussed about Spurs basketball, especially during playing out the string time. Is just the Coyote skits have got to stop, people.
Oh my God.
Oh no. Victor was laughing his butt off at those.
He was not. No one was. Dying. It's just silence. It's just awkward and terrible.
Oh no, you're good.
Jeff always says, just play music that people can get excited about. Like throw T-shirts into the stands.
If the house isn't rocking, don't bother knocking.
Yes, some of the competition baby races are fun. The Whataburger build a burger thing, like you have people jumping on each other in hot dog or hamburger buns. Those are fun. When they drop the balloons out of the sky, that's fun. The HEB competition to win the gift certificates. That's fun. But anything involving whoever is writing for the Coyote these days, just
Holy
stop.
cow.
The skits have been terrible for years now. If they get worse every year. People do not want to watch a little 5-minute Coyote like terrible comedy routine. It's awful. And you look around the stands and it's just the excitement is drained from the building with these lame Coyote jokes.
Good Lord.
The Coyote's a fun mascot, jumping around, like pointing at the crowd, doing the SPURS thing.
Mm-hmm.
Go Spurs go. He's great. We don't need pre-written material. It's terrible.
I disagree. I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
You do not. Everyone knows how bad it is. No one has the courage to come out and say it, other than the post of this podcast.
You're going to
Coyote skits.
You are going to be hauled into the gulag for this opinion.
And so much of it is just ridiculous. Oh my gosh. I've had enough. Anyway.
This is a hell of a podcast.
Let's get back to basketball.
You want to talk about basketball at any point of this thing?
The original Coyote, Tim Dirk,
was great.
Into the Hall of Fame.
The San Antonio Sports Hall of Fame in September.
He's been a clue on Jeopardy. Well deserved. He was a trailblazer.
Yeah.
You can't keep up that level of greatness forever. And also he didn't rely on terrible skits.
I'll tell you what, I think the skits are fine. They just need to work Blue a little bit more. I mean, he's already not wearing pants,
Well, speaking of pants, Tim Dirk said, the great thing about my job, I never had to shave. I never had to wear long pants. It was a great job.
That's the same for me.
McDonald.
Same for me.
Uh-huh. Can we get this back to basketball?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
The segue here is if you want to read more about
the Coyote,
the Coyote or any other Spurs related subjects, log on to expressnews.com, sign up for the Spurs Nation newsletter, where we are going to be covering this team in depth for the rest of the season as it heads towards another lottery. Lots of good stuff from Jeff and Tom.
You have any more franchise icons you want to slander?
Maybe next week. Keep people tuned in.
Any thoughts on David Robinson? Come on.
Come on.
David Robinson always wears pants, and he never participates in mind-numbingly awful skits.
I mentioned it earlier, but De'Aaron Fox is going to have surgery probably. He told us.
Yeah,
possibly could be in LA.
Yeah,
he said that throw a little monkey wrench into the end of the season.
Yeah, he said that he'll be. This was in Sacramento during the midst of a flurry of questions about his time there after the game, including his babysitting skills. Yeah, he said that he could have surgery when the Spurs are in Los Angeles for that March 17th game that was originally postponed because of the wildfires. He said he's seeing a specialist out there, and he could or could not have surgery during that trip, season-ending surgery.
It's all about that left pinky that's been
ligament damage,
which is his dominant pinky.
Yeah. Do we have a sense of how much that's been affecting his game all year?
You see him looking down at it all the time, and
he says not, but it clearly is, I think.
It's not pain. It's that thing where the ligament is kind of gone, and the pinky just kind of hangs there, and you could play without taping it, but then it would hang there. And Dirk Nowitzki had this a few years ago, and everyone scoffs. I had this for a while, where did not have surgery. No, when a ball or something jams that finger and it tears the ligament, and I think it's called Mao finger, and the thing.
That's our nickname for you
in San Antonio. Exactly, movie Mao finger.
The Buck Harvey had it at one point. Shout out to Buck Harvey, who absolutely is not listening to this podcast.
So he played through pain a lot.
Yeah. When you have to type for a living, it's an issue. And the thing is, you can immobilize it, and it like with mine, it healed itself, but you had to keep it in a sling for like this plastic cast for weeks at a time, which was annoying. And that's harder to do when you're playing NBA basketball. But the thing is, it's not painful. It just sort of hangs. And so when a ball is coming and one pinky is hanging, this is why we need a video podcast so I could show you this. But if it's hanging there, it just kind of gets in the way. So he kind of has to tape it, and it's annoying to him. And this isn't like when people have been saying, oh, he needs to get it done now to get it over with. It's not a like months long recovery process. He could get it done and be ready to play relatively soon.
Be ready for the play-in.
Right. But the thing is, and so if the Spurs were in the play-in or in the playoffs, I'm sure he'd play the rest of the season with the thing and not worry at all about him being ready next year. Now it's just kind of, if he's in LA, they decide to do it on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, that game they play at the Lakers. It's not going to hurt for him to miss the last 3 weeks of the season. But yeah, that could bring that could bring more lottery odds into play,
Right.
which, as Jeff mentioned earlier, the Spurs have caught the Chicago Bulls.
Wait, I just want to recap. This is called Malfinger.
I don't know. That's reckless speculation on my part. Dirk Nowitzki, Buck Harvey, Mike Finger.
I wanted to recap
had Malfinger.
I wanted to recap.
I'm not sure if De'Aaron has Malfinger, but Dirk, Buck, and Mike had it.
I wanted to recap the notable basketball players who had this condition: De'Aaron Fox, Dirk Nowitzki, Mike Finger, and Buck Harvey.
Yeah, he really
are the notable players
there
who have fought through this adversity.
I should not have said. I believe
it's the Mount Rushmore of Malfinger.
Yeah.
People can look it up if they want to. I don't know 100% if that's what De'Aaron has. That's what it looks like. He did not specify that's the ailment that he had, but it's what Dirk had. And Dirk went through the playoffs with it one year, and it was just taped like De'Aaron has. It's not a career threatening type of thing. Like I'm still going at it hard. Buck had to retire eventually,
but for other reasons. It wasn't
replaced by a much inferior columnist. But and that was bad for San Antonio, bad for the Express News. But
Buck played through a bad back also.
He did.
Yeah.
Like Larry Bird and David Robinson. He's on a bunch of lists. Buck Harvey is.
He is.
And unlike the Coyote, his material was always good. Always.
It was.
I am not involved in this Coyote slander. I think he's
Jeff. You just don't. You don't. Okay. You have the guts to question the Spurs. Advert.
I just call it like I see it.
But you sit up there on top of 107 screaming, "Play the house as a rock and stop this Coyote."
I just like this.
And you don't stand by your words on the podcast.
I just like that song. I like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay. The week ahead, we have to do it. I don't need to make predictions, but a second chance at the Mavericks, a chance at redemption, to live up to Jeff McDonald's high expectations for competitive spirit. Get another chance at the Mavs, who may have more than 8 players next time. I think you have to have at least 8. If they have less than 8, they'd have to go sign somebody. But a second chance at the Mavericks on Wednesday at the Frost Bank Center, then a back-to-back at the Frost Bank Center against the vaunted Charlotte Hornets and the imposing New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah. All right.
Sitting up on the platform Monday night, Spurs Express News beat writer Jeff McDonald said, "I think the Spurs can win 4 games this week," and they went on to lose one, so they can't win 4 games this week. But those are 3 winnable games at home, followed by that aforementioned trip to Los Angeles to make up for the Fire game against the Lakers on Monday. So that's quite a week. The Spurs are now in a tie for the 8th position in the NBA lottery, and we'll talk about this in future podcasts. Like there's 8 pretty fun prospects. This is a good draft to have a top 8 pick in. I think if you finish in that area, you're going to get somebody who can help you, and we'll talk about that in the future. But that's something to look forward to. Any thoughts on the week ahead, Tom and Jeff?
I think the Spurs are going to be inspired by their lackluster play in the first game against Dallas. Mitch is going to whip them into a frenzy about, we can't come out here and embarrass the city of San Antonio the way we did on Monday.
Coyote.
And they are going to play like their hair's on fire the rest of the week. And I think they're going to win all 3 home games.
All 3 home games against the Dallas Mavericks, the Charlotte Hornets, and the New Orleans Pelicans.
And the one in LA is going to be a little ugly. But yeah, I'm going to give them all 3. Just because, it's sort of like, they're going to be inspired. They're going to be embarrassed at what they done against the Mavericks on Monday.
Ashamed of what I've done.
They're just going to be totally ashamed. And they're not going to play like that again. They're going to play the next 3 games like they're playoff games and win them all against teams that are probably trying to lose.
I can't wait to watch these games now. Tom, what do you think?
2-2.
2-2.
Yeah,
it seems more reasonable. Still would be an improvement over the way they played recently. But that'll be fun. More progress to watch for from the likes of Devin Vassell and Stephon Castle, who we didn't mention much this week. We talk about him every week, but he's had his ups and downs. Continuing to make a push for Rookie of the Year. We'll get into that and more in future podcasts as we play out the string and more on the Spurs Insider podcast. Until next time, take care of each other and keep it real.